Breaking news. Buckle up because this offseason is already shaping up to be one of the most intriguing in years. Every year we make wish lists, debate roster moves, and wonder what a new addition could mean for this team. But what if I told you that Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken has a very specific philosophy on talent acquisition, and it might change the way you think about the Ravens offseason moves? I'll tell you everything that's going on right now. But first, make sure you hit that like button. But only do that if you're a true Baltimore Ravens fan. If possible, comment something like, "Go Ravens, nothing's stopping us." Now, let's get right to it. There's always that argument. Oh, the Ravens shouldn't bring in too many playmakers because there aren't enough touches to go around. We've heard it before. Players will complain about their role, demand more targets, and cause chemistry issues. But here's the thing. Monken isn't worried about that. Not at all. In fact, he welcomes it. His words, "I'd rather manage too many really good players than not have enough." That's not just a soundbite. It's a statement. A message to Ravens fans and the front office alike. This offense isn't about limiting talent. It's about accumulating as much of it as possible. And we've seen it in action already. Last season, Baltimore opened with Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Rasheen Ali in the backfield. Then Keaton Mitchell returned, throwing another explosive playmaker into the mix. People worried about how Monken would incorporate him, but the answer was simple. More talent is never a bad thing. The same happened at receiver. The Ravens already had Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, but they still made a move for Deontay Johnson. It didn't pan out, but the intention was clear. Load up on playmakers. So what does this mean moving forward? It means every time you hear someone say, "The Ravens shouldn't go after player X because there aren't enough targets," you can shut that down immediately. Monken has spoken. More talent, more problems? That's a good problem to have.
Now, speaking of adding talent, there's been a lot of buzz about potential trades, and one name that keeps popping up is DK Metcalf. The Seahawks reportedly want a first and third round pick, but some fans have suggested alternative deals, like swapping Mark Andrews and a mid-round pick for the star receiver. It's a fascinating debate. Mark Andrews has been Lamar Jackson's security blanket for years, but if the Ravens truly want to upgrade their receiving core, would they make that move? And even if they could land Metcalf, would they be willing to pay him? There's also the dream scenario that's officially off the table, Max Crosby, a fan-favorite target in hypothetical trade talks. Crosby just secured a record-breaking contract extension, making him the highest-paid defensive player in NFL history. Translation? He's not going anywhere. And that leaves Baltimore still searching for that true game wrecker on the defensive line. Because let's be real, the Ravens haven't had that dominant, game-changing pass rusher in years. And that's why some fans are frustrated with the front office. One fan put it best: the Ravens need to take a page out of the Eagles' playbook, be aggressive, take risks, and go after game changers. It's hard to argue. The Eagles aren't shy about making splash moves. They were rumored to be interested in Myles Garrett, and while that may have just been speculation, it highlights a key difference in team-building philosophies. The Ravens are calculated, methodical, and sometimes conservative. But is it time for them to change that approach? It's not just about big-name players either. Baltimore has crucial decisions coming up with their own stars. Center Tyler Linderbaum is reportedly eyeing a $50 million guarantee on his next contract. Is he worth it? Absolutely. But it's yet another financial puzzle the Ravens will have to solve. Then there's Derrick Henry, whose market was just influenced by Saquon Barkley's 2-year, $41.2 million deal. Will that drive up Henry's asking price? And if so, will Baltimore be willing to meet it? And let's not forget about free agency. One of the more underrated names floating around is Chris Godwin. He's not the flashiest target, but he'd be a rock-solid WR3 who knows how to produce. Tyler Lockett is another name that could fit Baltimore's approach, a savvy veteran who wouldn't break the bank. But the question remains, will the Ravens even make a move at receiver, or will they roll with the talent they already have? Here's where things get really interesting. There's speculation that if Ronnie Stanley hits free agency, the Kansas City Chiefs could swoop in and steal him away. That's the risk you run when you let top-tier talent test the market. And if that happens, Baltimore could be scrambling to replace a key piece of their offensive line. So here we are, at the crossroads of another pivotal offseason. Do the Ravens double down on their philosophy of building through the draft and making selective free agent moves? Or do they finally take a more aggressive approach, swinging for the fences on a big-time acquisition? We want to hear from you. What should Baltimore's next move be? Should they go all in on a star receiver? Prioritize a pass rusher? Make a bold trade? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about it. One thing is for sure, this Ravens team isn't far off from greatness. Last season proved that. They dominated the AFC, secured the #1 seed, and had moments where they looked downright unstoppable. but we all know how it ended. And that's the biggest question of this offseason. How do the Ravens take that final step? How do they make sure this isn't another case of so close, but not quite enough? Let's be honest, playmakers win championships. Look at the teams that have hoisted the Lombardi Trophy in recent years. The Chiefs, they made sure Patrick Mahomes had a dynamic cast, even if it wasn't loaded with superstar names. The Rams, they went all in for talent like Von Miller, Odell Beckham Jr., and Matthew Stafford. Even the Eagles, when they made their Super Bowl run, aggressively pursued game-changing talent. The formula is clear. If you want to win, you need difference makers at key positions. That's why Todd Monken's philosophy matters. When your offensive coordinator says he would rather manage a ton of talent than not have enough, that's a direct challenge to the front office. It means the Ravens shouldn't hesitate to add another top-tier wide receiver. It means they should be thinking about a major splash on the defensive line. It means settling for good enough is not an option. And that brings us to the reality of this Ravens roster. Right now, they have elite pieces. Lamar Jackson is an MVP quarterback. Derrick Henry, even at this stage of his career, is a force. Zay Flowers is a rising star. Roquan Smith is the leader of the defense. Kyle Hamilton is a playmaker in the secondary. But where are the true, undisputed game records on the defensive line? Who is the guy that offensive coordinators are losing sleep over? Who is the wide receiver that demands double teams every snap? That's what separates a great team from a championship team. And let's talk about money. Because, like it or not, financial decisions will dictate how aggressive Baltimore can be. We already know Tyler Linderbaum is looking at a massive extension. We know Derrick Henry could command more than what the Ravens initially expected. And we know that guys like Justin Matabike, Kyle Hamilton, and others are going to need big paydays down the line. So does that mean Baltimore should hold off on making a big move? Absolutely not. If anything, it means they need to be even more strategic. The best teams don't just sit back and let other franchises dictate the market. They find ways to make the money work while still adding elite talent. That's why the trade discussions around Mark Andrews and DK Metcalf are so fascinating. On one hand, Andrews is one of the best tight ends in football, and he's been Lamar Jackson's go-to target for years. Trading him would be a massive shakeup. But on the other hand, if Baltimore truly wants to upgrade their receiver room, Metcalf could be the piece that takes this offense to another level. The problem? Paying him. It's the same dilemma we've seen before. Do you invest heavily in a receiver when you already have Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman? And speaking of receivers, what about Devontae Adams? Fans have been buzzing about him, but the reality is his price tag might keep the Ravens out of the mix. If Baltimore is going to add a receiver, it's more likely to be a mid-tier option like Chris Godwin or Tyler Lockett. But is that enough? Will the Ravens finally make the kind of aggressive move that puts them over the top? So here we are at a critical turning point for this franchise. The pieces are in place for another deep playoff run. But is that enough? Or do the Ravens need to do more to finally get over the hump? This is where you come in. What's the move? Should Baltimore go all in for a star receiver? Should they add a true pass rusher? Should they shake up the roster in a major way? Let us know in the comments. The conversation starts now.